Krakos Maank had survived worse crashes. At least that's what he told himself as smoke hissed from the bent hull of his Spelljammer, half buried in the blood-red sands of a world that wasn't marked on any star chart. The crash had left one wing sheared, the crystal drive cracked, and his ribs aching with every breath. He staggered from the wreck, clutching his side, his long explorer's coat torn and scorched. Karnaki blood trickled into the dust, dark and coppery. Overhead, two suns blazed, their combined heat suffocating. The air smelled faintly of brimstone. A world of tieflings. The thought twisted his gut. Every spacer had heard tales of infernal descended folk who had carved their lives in hostile lands, fierce, unyielding, cunning. This world, this place, was theirs. And Krakos was the intruder. He needed time. Time to repair the ship. The tieflings came. But time was never given. It had to be stolen. The first attack came at dusk. Krakos had managed to right one of the bent support struts when he heard the horns, low, guttural blasts that carried across the desert. Shapes moved between the red rocks, tiefling raiders, their horns gleaming like blades in the dying light. Krakos' hand went to the ruined pistol at his belt, its Karnaki steel etched with wards that hissed faintly when drawn. The raiders charged, their weapons jagged, their eyes burning. The first leapt, Krakos fired. A bolt of searing azure tore through the raider's chest, spinning him to the dirt. But there were more, too many. Krakos ducked behind the hull, muttered a quick incantation, and thrust his palm forward. A gust of arcane wind roared, scattering sand and staggering his attackers. Back, he roared, his voice raw, though he knew they couldn't understand him. A spear skimmed past his cheek, drawing blood. Another tiefling vaulted over the hull, swinging a wicked cleaver. Krakos caught the blade on his gauntlet, sparks flying, then drove his pistol into the raider's jaw. Bone cracked. The tiefling toppled. Krakos didn't wait. He dragged the fallen body into the sand and ripped a leather satchel free. Inside were dried meat, flint, and a water skin. Supplies, gods, he needed them. The horns wailed again, this time retreating. The raiders melted into the darkness, leaving Krakos alone with the groaning hull of his ship. He had won, but barely. The nights on this world were worse than the days. The twin suns fled, leaving behind a black sky with a single crimson moon. Krakos worked by the glow of runestones, fitting shattered crystal shards together with trembling hands. His ribs throbbed, his blood dried in itchy streaks, but he worked on. Every sound from the desert made his heart hammer. He thought of home. Karnak's marble towers, the libraries of spell maps, the scent of river reeds in the dawn. He thought of the oath he had made as an explorer, to seek, to endure, to survive. Survival was all he had now. On the third day they came again. This time they brought a war beast. It rose from the sands like a nightmare, scaled hide, tusks jutting from its maw, molten eyes that dripped fire. Krakos cursed under his breath, fumbling for the staff he had carried since his initiation into the Karnaki explorers. The staff thrummed with stored magic, but its reserves were low. The tieflings drove the beast forward with whips and spears, shouting in their harsh tongue. Krakos aimed the staff and released a crackling sphere of energy. It slammed into the beast's flank, tearing scales and spraying black ichor. The creature bellowed, rage eclipsing pain, and charged. Krakos dove aside, rolling across the sand, ribs screaming. The beast crashed into the hull, denting it further. Krakos gritted his teeth. If the ship was destroyed, his fight was meaningless. He forced himself up, whispered a Karnaki prayer, and summoned fire to his palm. The flame roared to life, brighter than the sun's. He hurled it at the beast's head. The infernal thing reeled, howling, as fire clung to its face like molten tar. The tieflings shouted, some breaking ranks, others charging Krakos. He fought like a cornered wolf, pistol in one hand, staff in the other, his coat flaring as he spun and struck. One by one they fell. The desert drank their blood. The beast, blinded, staggered into a ravine, crashing into the rocks until silence swallowed its roars. Krakos stood, chest heaving, the staff trembling in his grip. His blood mingled with theirs, spattering the crimson sand. By the seventh day, the repairs were nearly complete. Krakos had scavenged crystal shards from the tiefling weapons, fusing them into the Spelljammer's core. It wasn't perfect, but it might fly. At least long enough to leave this cursed place. The tieflings didn't return that night, or the next. Krakos wondered if he had broken their spirit, or if they simply waited for him to weaken further. His food was gone, his water was nearly empty, his ribs were worse. But the Spelljammer pulsed faintly with life. When dawn came, Krakos dragged himself into the cockpit. He whispered the ignition rites, pressed bloodied fingers to the rune sigils and prayed. The crystal core flared. The wings shuddered. The ship groaned like a dying beast, but it rose. Sand whipped around him as the Spelljammer clawed its way into the sky. On the cliffs below, a line of tieflings had gathered. They stood silent, watching him ascend. Their horns gleamed in the dawn. Their eyes glowed, not with hatred, but with something like respect. Krakos locked eyes with their chieftain, a towering figure with spiraling horns and ash-black skin. For a breath, they regarded one another across the gulf. Enemies, survivors, warriors. Then the Spelljammer broke through the cloud line. The world fell away. Krakos slumped into his seat, his body broken, but his spirit burning. He had survived. Survival was